What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Heisman Watch Podcast, your home for hot topics and hot takes. I'm your host, Kyle Heiss. I thank you for your patience. I know it's been a while since I've released a video, but we got a couple topics I want to talk about today. I'm repping the Cardinals jersey because Kyler just got paid, but we're gonna keep it in the state of Arizona because a couple players got paid within the past week or so. That is. Big impact players. So we're just going to open up with DeAndre Ayton first. So the Indiana Pacers did an offer sheet to try to sign DeAndre, and it was 4 years, $133 million. And the Phoenix Suns had 2 days to respond to try to max the offer, or to try to match the offer. And within minutes, the Suns said we're keeping him. So DA is on a 4-year, $133 million deal. Congrats to DA. You got a life-changing deal. And it's good for the Suns to be able to keep their center. They've solidified that position. So they re-signed Bismack Biyombo. They let JaVale McGee walk, which I wish they wouldn't have, but JaVale was looking for a more long-term deal. But so we got Bismack Biyombo, and then now DeAndre Ayton is re-signed for 4 years, $133 million. He's a career 16-10 guy, so he's a walking double-double. I would like to see his point total go up. Hopefully, I think he's going to be more versatile for the full point of the season. Because towards the end of the year and more in the play, we saw it more against the Pelicans, but how he had developed his mid-range jump shot. Like that elbow or the wing baseline to the mid-range jump shot, and it's added a different portion to his game that I don't think was as consistent towards the beginning of his career. So CP, it's no longer just layups and dunks for DA on the pick and roll now with CP. He can do a little step back and get a little space and hit a mid-range jump shot. So it's good to see that he is now creating more shots for himself. I would like to see his point total go up. Maybe next year he goes 20-11. That would be a fantastic year for DA if he goes 20-11. But this doesn't just impact the Suns roster, it also impacts their potential trade for Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant is still seeking a trade out of Brooklyn, with the Phoenix Suns as his number one on his preferred options list of destinations he would like to end up. It was like Phoenix 1, Miami 2, I don't know who 3 and 4. I know other teams are like, maybe Portland makes a run for him, maybe Golden State makes a run for him, maybe Toronto makes a run for him, but I know 1 and 2 was Phoenix and Miami. But Phoenix was the preferred destination. He says he wants to play with Devin Booker, which I am very excited about. But now with the signing of DeAndre Ayton, how does that affect our potential race for Kevin Durant with the whole the KD sweepstakes this offseason? Part of the contract that DA signed, he cannot be traded any earlier than January 15th. And he has say in his final destination, so he can veto any trade for the first full year of his contract. So I think that completely eliminates the fact of potentially trading DA this season. I think for at least 1 year, DA is going to be part of the Phoenix Suns. They're not going to trade him because it is very difficult to please your player on top of getting good pieces in return. So I think DA for at least the season is going to be a Phoenix Sun, which I am happy about. He's a dominant presence in the paint, good defensive player. But it really, I don't know how much it will affect the Kevin Durant, because I don't think a DA was part of that trade unless he was on a sign and trade bundle deal to go, if it was like a 3 or 4 part team. Like DA goes to Indiana, Halliburton goes to I don't know. I saw that whenever after the Jazz traded Rudy Gobert, that there was potential sign and trade with, it would have gone DA to Utah, Donovan Mitchell to Brooklyn, and then KD to Phoenix. But DA is no longer allowed to be traded at least till January 15th, and he has veto power for the first full year of his contract. So it's going to be more difficult for the Suns to put a package deal with just Phoenix. This is going to be turning into like a 3 or 4 team deal. I think with this whole Kevin Durant thing, because Brooklyn is asking for a crazy amount. But I think the Suns are smart with being patient because you don't want to trade the farm for a piece that may or may not hit. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. He is one of the most elite scorers in this league. He has won championships in Golden State. He had to team up with Steph to do it, but he has won championships, and he won those finals MVPs for a reason. So he is an elite player in this league, but this late in his career, with how much he's been getting injured more recently, I think the Suns are smart for refusing to trade the farm for a player that can maybe give you 2 years of peak play. But that being said, he could be the final piece for the Suns to make that run. One of the things that the Suns were missing last year was a second scorer alongside Book. The year before, it was the Book was taking over the playoffs. And then when they got to the finals, whenever DA got in foul trouble, Giannis just took over whoever the backup was. So it was center depth. Now it was scoring depth this season. Booker still had a really good postseason. The only problem is teams were double and triple teaming him constantly because they saw how good he was last year. So they needed that second scorer to just relieve those double teams off Book. And I think the Suns are thinking it's Kevin Durant. But how much are you willing to give up for him? With the DA trade, with the DA signing, I find it hard to believe that Mikal Bridges will know. He has to be part of the deal because the Suns are going to be so over the cap with Book's max extension because he got first team All NBA. CP is still on his 3-year, $120 million deal. They just re-signed DA to 4 years, $133 million. They already have Mikal Bridges on contract. So they're going to have to find a way to free cap space. I think the most reasonable way to do it, as much as I hate to say it, would be Mikal Bridges, unless you get multiple teams into it. But I find it hard to believe that if the Suns end up with KD, Mikal Bridges will still be a Phoenix Sun, which I hate it because in order to win in this league, you do need elite defenders. Elite scorers doesn't get you everything. It gets you far, it gets you a lot, but in Brooklyn, they had elite scorers. Now, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant never really played together, but they had elite scorers, and yet they never made it past. I think the furthest they made it past was like the second round of the playoffs, and that was it. They made it to the second round last year or the year before and lost to Milwaukee. Excuse me. So, elite scorers is great. Elite defenders wins you championships. And we saw that with this year's finals as Golden State and Boston were 1 and 2 in defensive ratings, and they were the teams that were in the finals. Golden State ended up winning. We've already congratulated them on that. But you need elite defenders in this league if you're going to be successful, and Mikal Bridges has already proven himself as an elite defender, being the runner-up Defensive Player of the Year this year to Marcus Smart. So I would love to see Mikal stay. But if a Kevin Durant deal happens due to money reasons, I think you would have to send Mikal to Brooklyn, which sucks. I don't want that to happen. But if at all possible, you keep either Mikal or Cam. You cannot ship them both. Those are two young pieces that they work for the offense. They are part of the young core of Phoenix, and I would like to see at least one of them stay. If both stay, fantastic. If they find a way to keep both and get Kevin Durant, that biggest win trade I've seen in a long time. But you want to keep either Mikal or Cam. Mikal has already proven himself as an elite 3-and-D guy, an elite wing defender in this league, and Cam Johnson, I think, has Klay Thompson potential, and we saw it more when he had to take a starting position role whenever we hit that stretch later in the season with Book was injured and CP was injured for it was like 12 games or something where both of them were out, and Cam Johnson stepped up and he dropped that 30+ scoring night against the New York Knicks in the Garden, I think it was. So we see flashes of Cam having that Klay Thompson kind of potential before Klay had those 2 seasons worth of injuries. And he shot over 40% last year. That's one of the highest ratings in the league. So you got to find a way to keep Cam or Mikal. You can't send both, and if you keep both, that's even better. But you have, when this is all said and done, you have to have at least Cam or Mikal still on the roster. I would love to see Kevin Durant in Phoenix. I would love to see what he could do to help out this team. But you got to keep Cam or Mikal just with their young potential that they have. And if you keep Cam, you got to find a way to get him more minutes, more of a prominent role, whether it is the main 6th man, whether it is a starting position, and Jay Crowder takes a step back into more of a 6th man role. But Cam has to get more minutes so he can keep his development going and show how important he is to this team. But so we're gonna go segue into the next one, which is Kyler Murray. We're gonna stay in Arizona, but we're gonna flip it to football. Kyler just got his wish. He just got paid. The Cardinals have their quarterback, their franchise quarterback. It was a 5-year, $230.5 million. $160 million of it is a guaranteed, and it's roughly $46 million a year, give or take. It's around $46 million a year. It's a lot of money. It's not necessarily a team-friendly deal, but with how we see the quarterback market change year after year and how it expands, and it was like just reaching 40 mil was crazy, and then now we're Pat Mahomes has a $500 million deal, and Josh Allen is now making an astronomical amount of money. Russell Wilson got a deal. So, I mean, with how much the quarterback market changes, I don't think this is a horrible deal, but it's definitely not team-friendly. But Kyler Murray will be making over the next 5 years $230.5 million, $160 million guaranteed. Like I said, the Cardinals got their guy, and I think it's smart. As much as I disliked the kind of antics and demanding of the contract in the offseason, Kyler did say that, yes, I want a contract, but yes, I want to stay. He was very adamant about the fact that he did want to stay in Phoenix. Phoenix is his home. He wants to help build the Cardinals and continue that. He just wanted to get his money, which I understand it as a young athlete. You want to get paid as quickly as possible. So Kyler got his money. Again, it's 5 years, $230.5 million, 160 of it guaranteed. It's going to average to about $46 million a year. But I think Kyler has kind of earned a contract like this. Like, he's improved every year. And a lot of this is, what were the Cardinals without him? Because the history of the Cardinals is, once they find their guy, it's like it's usually in the last part of their career, and it's like 2-3 good years of success, and then they fall off. They finally found a young, good quarterback. They tried to get in Josh Rosen, and they instantly went away and got Kyler. So they think they found Kyler, a good young quarterback, and they think they can get another 5 to 7 years out of his play. And I think it's smart. Get your guy and secure him. But I mean, like, what were the Cardinals without him? So, in between the Carson Palmer and the Bruce Arians time and the Kyler and Cliff time, the Cardinals were basically unwatchable football. It was, how high of a pick are they going to get this year? That's what it was. Are they going to get top 10? Are they going to get top 5? Are they going to get the number 1 pick this year? Like, how bad are the Cardinals going to be? And it was the same thing when it was in between Kurt Warner and Cam Wisenhunt and the Bruce Arians, Carson Palmer time. In between that, it was miserable football. It was year after year, it was either 3rd or 4th in the division, and are you top 10, top 5, or number 1? So when you got your guy, especially for a franchise that doesn't have a lot of success historically, you secure him, almost no matter the cost. So I know of some people that would disagree with how positive I am about this, just because the big question mark with Kyler is health. The past couple seasons, he's kind of, like, at the end, like the latter half of the season, some sort of injury has derailed his play and derailed the Cardinals. 2 years ago, the Cardinals that started off, I think it was like 5-3, and they ended up 8-8, and they were 1 game out of the playoffs. And it was it was hard to see how the Cardinals, it was just like the last 5 weeks of the season, it was like they just needed to win one game, and they just couldn't win that one game to secure the playoff spot. And then this past season, they started off 8-1. Their only loss was to the Green Bay Packers, and that was the game that Kyler rolled his ankle. D-Hop was also injured for the latter half of the season, so that's two of their best offensive pieces were injured, and they went from 8-1 to 11-6. So the first half of the season was phenomenal, and then the last half of the season they only won 3 games, and they went from being first in the division, which would have really helped to have home field, to they were second in the division, and then ended up drawing the Rams first round of the playoffs. And a lot of playoff runs, how teams get these crazy runs is matchups. Matchups really do help. And I think the Cardinals had a poor matchup in the Rams in the first round of the playoffs. Kyler was literally running for his life. It's fantastic that the Cardinals have been improving every year under Kyler. It's fantastic that we finally got that first playoff appearance since I think it was 2015 or 2016, which was like the last year of Carson Palmer, Bruce Arians. But if Kyler can stay healthy, then the Cardinals are going to be dangerous. I really think they could repeat, go at least 11-6, go maybe 12-5. The Cardinals are going to be dangerous, especially with how weak the NFC is this year. The AFC is deep. Their top 7 teams in the league are going to be absolutely lethal. That playoff side, that playoff bracket, whenever it happens next year, is going to be fun to watch, because you're going to have Lamar Jackson, maybe you're going to have Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I want to see what Joe Shiesty can do in his second year. Probably, I would pick them to win the AFC North. But I think the Bengals could make another really good run. You got just the AFC West by itself with, I already said Mahomes, but you got Herbert, you got Derek Carr, and now you got Russell Wilson in the mix. So there's a lot of great quarterbacks. There's a lot of great teams in the AFC. But with the NFC, I think the Cardinals are still a playoff team. A large part being is how weak the NFC is now. So with Russell Wilson leaving the Seahawks and going to the AFC, with Devontae Adams leaving Green Bay and going to the Las Vegas Raiders, the Packers I still think are the best team in the NFC North, but they actually got worse. With Aaron Rodgers losing his top guy. The Seahawks are in a full rebuild. The Niners, it looks like they're going to end up trading Jimmy G, and they're going to go into a quarterback transition. Is Trey Lance the guy? The Eagles, I think, got a little bit better with the addition of A.J. Brown, giving Jalen Hurts another weapon. But I think the Dallas Cowboys might have gotten a little bit worse with Prescott losing his number one guy in Amari Cooper. So there's a lot of question marks in the NFC. So it leaves room for playoff spots. And I don't think the Cardinals are going to win the NFC West, not by any means. I think the LA Rams are head and shoulders the best team in the NFC. They're coming off a Super Bowl run. Matt Stafford is still great. Cooper Kupp just won the Triple Crown as a receiver. So I think the Rams are still the best, far and away the best team in the NFC. But I do think the Cardinals are going to be really competitive, and I think the Cardinals are still a playoff team. But I would like to see the Cardinals increase their win numbers, kind of like they have every season under Kyler and Cliff. They went 5-10-1 to 8-8 to 11-6. So maybe they go 12-5, 13-4. Who knows? We'll see. But they're going to have to open up with a tough stretch. But if they can get out of that 2-1, maybe, I think that's going to be huge, because they are at home against the Chiefs. I'm never going to, even if it's against my own team and I think we're great, I'm never going to bet against Pat Mahomes with how crazy of a playmaker he is. Then we are at Las Vegas against the Raiders. Derek Carr is a playoff team. The Raiders are a playoff team now. And then you got home against the Rams, who embarrassed us in the postseason, and like I keep saying, I think are far and away the best team in the NFC. So those first 3 games for the Cardinals are going to be super tough, and then they could play like the Panthers, the Saints, and the Seahawks. But those first 3 games of the season are going to be pretty tough. And they're all going to be without D-Hop, because D-Hop is suspended for the first 6 games of the season. So we're going to see how much of an impact the trade for Hollywood Brown is going to be right out the gate because he's probably going to be the number one guy. Being friends with Kyler Murray and playing with him in Oklahoma and already having that relationship with him, even though A.J. Green may be one of the more talented receivers without D-Hop, you still got Rondale Moore who's going to be returning. Hollywood Brown is going to instantly walk in as probably the number one guy until D-Hop gets back. Just because of that relationship he already has with Kyler. So we're going to see how much of an impact that trade will have within the first 6 games of the season. Fantasy, if you're into fantasy football, honestly, guys, watch out for Hollywood. I think he could, within the first 6 games of the season, he could be putting up some crazy numbers, and then maybe you trade him away after he's like at his peak. But Hollywood Brown, we're going to see how that trade works out. There's a lot of question marks with the Suns. There's a lot of question marks with the Cardinals. But they have signed the guys that were in question marks this offseason. DA is now the center for the Suns for at least the next year until the trade clause goes away. And then Kyler is the quarterback of the future for the Cardinals for the next 5 years, whether you like it or not. And I like it. He's very versatile. He's a playmaker in this league. For the first half of the season, he was the best player in the league. He was getting MVP talks, and then he got hurt, and then derailed the Cardinal season, and then they kind of fell off in the postseason. But those are very talented guys that got paid and are staying in Arizona, which is not something that us Arizona fans can say often, is we got our guys and we are keeping them here. A lot of times it's like Paul Goldschmidt, where you have your guy and then you don't want to pay him and then you send him to the St. Louis Cardinals. And I was sad to see him go. So I'm glad the 2 franchises that are doing the best right now in the state are keeping the guys that are giving them the success. And that's just what I want to see. Thank you again for tuning in, guys. Once again, it's the Heisman Watch podcast. I really appreciate you guys listening in and staying tuned. And if you like this video, if you like what I'm talking about, if you like what I'm about, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I want to see this channel grow. But yeah, we'll catch you next time.